Hello, my lords and ladies, and welcome. We finally made it to the pinnacle of our Chronicles of Drunagor, whatever it's called, series. This is it, the Undead King. Yay us. Yay us. First off, I want to say thank you to all my YouTube members. You guys are absolutely amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. There is, it's a little bit longer video because there's a lot more steps, unfortunately, but turned out pretty good, I think. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, hit the thumbs up. But without further ado, let's go. Alright, here we go. First thing you're going to do is scrape off all those nasty mold lines and then spray paint it in white, straight white, bone white, off-white, whatever kind of very mute color you got. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to paint all of the water type areas, I guess you could say. I don't know, ghostly areas, let's use that term. And some Pylar Glacier. There's a lot of areas we're going to go over with some different blues, and contrast paint is pretty neat because once you reactivate it with water, it reactivates. So you can wet blend even if it is dried. So just slap it on there, follow along, have fun. Next we're going to do some Ultramarine Blue, and we're kind of just focusing this on the recesses and pushing that Pylar Glacier around just a little bit just to give it that nice light tone versus dark tone. And don't worry, we're going to do more blues. We've got multiple blues we're going to put in here. We're trying to also get that into the recesses of the faces. And again, we're just going over. You can keep some parts lighter, some parts darker. Don't put too much. Don't put a whole brush full of stuff and make it look like it's just so saturated in one area. Just pick out the places and just keep going. Alright, next we're going to darken up those recesses just a little bit more with some Tyran Blue. This is a shade paint. If you don't have this, you don't necessarily need it. You can use Athletic Blue if you would like. I'm just sticking with those kind of navy blue type colors. So again, we're really getting that into the recesses, faces, getting those crevices all nice and dark. And to add just a little bit more depth, we're going to take some of that Leviadon Blue, get a small paintbrush, and we're going to put those specifically into the cracks and crevices of our miniature. Now this adds depth to this whole area, and it does make a big difference in my opinion. Alright, once it is completely dry, and I mean completely dry, not 99% dry, 100% dry, we're going to take some Chronus Blue, which is a blue, very light blue dry paint. If you don't have this, just use a light blue that you got, and go over as much as you want, as little as you want, just to brighten up, especially with the raised areas and the faces and whatnot. Once you're satisfied with how much you dry brush on there, we're going to use some Blue Horror. And Blue Horror is just a little bit lighter blue. You could add some white into whatever blue you were using, and you can put that on there as well. It's not necessarily you need these paints, just something similar to that to make that contrast look even more vibrant. And as a final highlight, now very gentle with this, don't overdo it. We're going to take some Ulthuan Grey and we're going to put that all over the raised areas. Again, do not overdo this. Don't go too crazy with it. Very light, back and forth dry brushing because you could potentially get too much of the gray on there. Not that I think that it'll hurt that much, but we just want to focus on the faces specifically, as a ghostly face is coming out of this whirlwind of death, I guess you could say. Alright, we are officially done with the Ghost Whirlwind. Now let's start moving on to everything else. We're going to use some Leviathan Purple on all of our robe areas and not hands, but you know what I'm talking about. The thing that I'm painting right now. Sleeves, there we go. Man, sometimes I just can't think. I just, man, my brain, probably because I'm staring at something else. Well, I should be staring at the screen. But that's alright. So we're going to paint those areas, the robes on the side coming down and in between the cracks and crevices of the raised areas. So this is a very dark color, so just be very careful on this. You'll probably need about 2 coats of this over the white, as it is kind of translucent once it kind of sits on there. So once it dries completely, put a second layer on there. Alright, next we're going to kind of make like a reptilian type snake thing. I've seen a couple different paint schemes of this, and I'm going to say the Undead King is part reptilian snake or something, so we're going to go with a greenish look on this. So obviously all the green that is on the bottom that's swirling around underneath of the Ghost Whirlwind. But there's also a portion on the back side of the vest and the front side as well that we got to hit. That we'll hit. You'll see here in a moment. All right, now for a large, vast majority of this miniature, it's going to be some skeleton. So we're going to use some skeleton horde. And we're going to be using this all over the staff, the face, and the hands, along with like the bone chains that are holding in the front. So this is going to take a little bit. And if you think this is going to take a little bit, wait till we do a little bit of the highlighting to really make those bones come out. I'm a really big fan of Skeleton Horde, especially as a base coat, and then we do it as a highlight with some of the bone-like paints, regular paints, and then we're going to do that here. So that's going to take most of your time. By far, that is the largest part of your time on this miniature, is highlighting all the bone areas, but it's worth it in the end, I think. So these are the bone chains that I mentioned earlier. So just put all those up. Now you're going to have some discoloration from the blue, maybe got a little bit of green, maybe a little bit of purple on there. It's okay, it's not a big deal. We are going to highlight them up, so don't freak out on it. Alright, our Undead King has a little bit of a fur going on in the back, and on the front you can kind of see, so we're going to just use some regular Basilicanum Grey. Don't get too much on there. As you just saw, I wiped it off, because you want that white to stick through. It gives you that natural already highlight. Pretty cool. For our Book of the Dead, now you could do a purple if you want, or a black. I went with a red, but you can do whatever you would like. Black would probably look a little bit more undeadish, but whatever. This works too. For the leather-bound portion of it, we're going to use some Garaghak Sewer, so pretty simple. Continuing with our blue theme, we are going to use some Frostheart on these bottom sections down here. We should have probably done this in the other blue phase, but I wasn't sure at the time what I was going to paint it, so now that you know, here we are. For the pages in our book, we're going to be using some beautiful Seraphim Sepia. That gives you that natural parchment color. So the bookmark as well, and the pages will be in this color. Alright, so you'll notice the raised lettering on the front portion of that coat. We're going to take some Night Lord's Blue and paint those up. This is going to be the base coat to the lighter blues we're going to do here later on in the video, as we're about 75% done with this base coat here. Alright, another large section of this miniature is going to be gold. What kind of king would our Undead King be if he wasn't covered in gold? So, we're going to use some Retributor Armour on that front armor piece. Now be careful when you're painting that. There's a little strand of hair that comes down, so try your best not to get that. Along with that, we're going to have to do several other pieces of our Undead King. Don't also forget to do the back. We are also doing both shoulders, just the edges and the insides. If you get some of that gold on the insides that we did in purple, not a big deal. We're going to touch that up near the end. Purple goes over that gold pretty easily, so shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. We're also going to do the crown as well, so get that crown area. You can get the whole thing. It doesn't make a difference. You can't really see the hair. They didn't make any detail for the hair. So just get that whole crown in gold. And finally, we're going to use this also on to our cufflets, I guess you could say. And we're going to use this on the book buckle as well. For the hair of our Undead King, we are going to do just some basic gray Seer, just to brighten up just a little bit, or dull it down, you know what I mean. And our last bait coat is some Briar Queen chill on that emerald in the middle. Yeah, pretty simple. Alright, let's do some shading. First thing we're doing on that green is some Athnian Camoshade. You really don't notice it. You probably don't need to do this. I continued with it through the entire thing anyways, but you really probably don't need to do this. But if you want to just see if those recesses darken up just a tad bit, go ahead and knock that out. Next, on all of our gold areas, we're going to do some basic Reikland Fleshshade. You can also use Seraphim Sepia if you would like, but I went with the Reikland on this one. For our hair, some basic Nulin Oil to give it some depth. And then I skipped the highlight portion on the hair, but just go over it with some gray Seer, or you can even do it with white. It's up to you. Alright, let's start the highlights. And this is the most tedious part. We're going to start with some Ushabti Bone, and we are going up over all of the raised areas on these bones. So I started off with the bone chains in the front of our Undead King, and I started going over all of those areas. Again, this does take a long time, and you can go as little as you want, you can go as crazy as you want. It's up to you, but I'm only going over those raised areas. Do not get any into the recesses. That's what gives it the depth that you are looking for. So again, put on a book. That's what I'm listening to right now. If you are a fan of Brandon Sanderson and the Way of Kings, I'm about 100 pages done with being done with the third book. So that's what I was listening to while I was doing this. But back to the painting. And then I'm focusing on the staff as well. So I'm going through all those raised areas and picking out the staff. And then I'm going to be picking out the skulls as well. Now, I'm picking out all the raised areas on the skulls. I don't overload the brush with too much paint when I'm going over those big skulls. I'm just picking out the eye sockets, the bridge of the nose, the mouth area, that types of stuff. I'm not going crazy. You can leave a lot of that contrast paint in the recesses and on top of that skull to give it some depth and colorization, and adds to the contrast as well. So, and don't forget to pick out the face of our Undead King. Alright, moving on to our next step on this magical journey. And we are going to use some Screaming Skull. And we're doing the same exact thing we just did, except Screaming Skull gives you just a little bit lighter highlight. Now, if you're painting a surface area, and let's say the surface area is 100%, you put the contrast paint on over 100% of that surface area. When we went over it with the Ushabti Bone, we're going over about 75% of that surface area. And now we're going over about 50%. We're just hitting those areas real quick and getting smaller with every new highlight that we do. Alright, and a final highlight. Some Pallied Witch Flesh. This is very minimal. Just going over certain areas. Not crazy, just small surface areas, and I'm just picking out minute details to add just to the depth. A little bit more lighter versus a little bit darker in some regions. And you notice that I'm going over like these vertebrae here. I'm just sticking to the middle and I'm not going crazy with it. Alright, now we're going to work on that green here. We're going to start off with some Straken Green, and we're just going to start kind of drawing boxes around those little circle areas. Filling in a lot of this surface area, but it's a minimal highlight. It just adds to the depth. It makes it a little bit more smooth compared to the roughness of the contrast paint. We are doing this all over basically every portion of the tail, and we're specifically highlighting the raised little bumps as well. To brighten up our highlights just a little bit, we're going to do a 50-50 mix of Straken Green and Ogryn Camo, and we are going to highlight up just the same areas we did, just a little bit less, do a little bit of edge highlighting around the squares of the snake tail or reptilian tail, and that's all we're really doing right there. Alright, back to our blue. We're going to work on those colored lettering onto our front portion. So we're going to use some Temple Guard Blue just to highlight up those areas. And just take your time on those. Make sure you get the edges around them as well, because they are raised lettering, so it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of precision, I guess you could say. We're also going to use this same color on the bottom portion of our... I don't even know what these are. I don't know. What's it? Robe dress? Whatever. I don't know. We're going to use that on there as well. Alright, to do a final highlight on those two things we just painted, we're going to do a 50-50 mix of Temple Guard Blue and Blue Horror. And brighten up those areas, make them look nice. They're just a little bit offsetting tone of our Demon Whirlwind, Ghost Whirlwind, but it adds some nice contrast to the blue. Alright, coming down to the wire, we are going to pick out those raised edges on our sleeves. And the first color we're going to use is some Genestealer Purple. Along with doing the raised areas on the sleeves, we are also going to do some edge highlighting on the sides of our robes. So use the corner of your brush, not a lot of paint on there, and just scrape that corner and it'll get right on there, adding a straight line of purple. Next, we're going to use a little bit brighter purple, Kakophoni Purple. I don't know how to say it. I'm sure that's not right, but whatever. And again, we're just highlighting that up. Now it looks a little bit bright when you get it on there, but as the color dries, we get to see how amazing this color is. And it really adds to the vibrancy of the robes. And we're also going to use this on the edge highlighting as well. Another large surface area. Liberator Gold for all of our gold areas. I'm not getting this in the recesses, just getting over those raised areas. And that's it. Alright, for our book pages, we are going to do some Ionrach Skin. No, that's not how you say it. But you know what I mean. We're going to do this over the tops of the bookmark and all of the lettering. So don't get it onto the pages, just get it onto the lettering. Highlighting up the book, just going to use some straight Wild Rider red on the edges and on the backside. Alright, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. We are almost there. Stirland Mud, we're going to put this all over the base and then let it completely dry. It doesn't take that long. I live in a dry climate, but it doesn't take that long. 15-20 minutes. Quickly, then just do a quick dry brush. Doesn't need to be right, wrong, or indifferent on the base, because we're about to go over it with some wash to mold it all together. And then just put on some Ogryn Fleshshade, and it'll blend those highlights that you just put on there with that dark brown and make it look pretty nice, actually. And finally, painting the rim of the base, because that means you're done. And I'm doing it in black. You should be black. He's the Undead King, right? You know what I mean? And that is it. That is your Undead King painted by Nerd Knights version. Matches the card art pretty decently. I think it turned out pretty well. I mean, yes, we put some time in there, absolutely. But did it turn out fantastic? I think it did. So it was worth it. I just want to say thank you for everybody who supports me, who watches this. You guys are the reasons I do it. Thank you for Havis, Jason Johnson, for your extra donations because you wanted to see this stuff painted. I did it for you guys. I did it for everybody. We're going to be moving on to some Elden Ring. But if you want to see something specifically painted, let me know. Let me know and leave a comment for me. We'll get to it when we can, or, you know, figure something out. But I love you all, and I will see you on the next one. Paint on.